Welcome to House of Ramirez podcast. Tonight's special guest, Nefertiti Jacquez.
Okay, Nefertiti, thank you so much for being here with me. This is Leslie with House of Ramirez. You already know. You're doing it real big. You know, you're empowering not just yourself and others around you. You're specifically empowering us women that are actually, we have something going for ourselves. And you're a prime example. If you can do something great with yourself, we can do it too. And I really enjoy seeing your growth, sis. Like you definitely out there popping, doing your thing. So for a lot of our readers and a lot of our viewers, if they don't know Nefertiti, who are you? Where are you from?
So I'm originally from Providence, Rhode Island. And so most people don't even know where that is. So it's that little state connected to Connecticut. I am the youngest of four. My eldest siblings were all born in New York. I was the only one that was born in Rhode Island because they're like, how did your parents end up there? So I'm a Northeast gal who moved to Atlanta 4 years ago. A lot of the folks in Atlanta know me from my work at Channel 2 at WSB. I was their lead 11 o'clock reporter. I specialize in criminal investigations. And honestly, and I think I've been a little bit more vocal about it in the last, I want to say year. I was actually a victim of crime when I was a young girl. I was emotionally, physically, and sexually abused. And so I thought I wanted to be an attorney, and my mind was dead set. I knew that I was going to go to Harvard and go to law school. And then I decided to quit law school after starting it and focus on journalism. I felt that my purpose was really more about helping people because I knew I couldn't be a criminal defense attorney because unfortunately there are some criminal defense attorneys that take on cases where they know they're defending the bad guy. So I knew that's not what I wanted. I knew that my purpose with everything that I had endured as a child and as a young adult was really to give back to my community. And it just kind of came and it came naturally. And so, yeah, my mission has always been to help create a platform to give those who don't have a voice an arena to tell their story.
Exactly. And it's very clear that you're doing that. You know, you're making sure that everyone is heard. Everyone has that opportunity. And nowadays we don't get that opportunity. Well, of course, it's 2020 and, you know, it's the time of opportunity and we live in the land of opportunity. But the way everything's set up, we don't have that outlet to speak freely. There's always someone watching over our heads saying, don't say this, don't do that. Who cares if you feel this? You need to say this, focus on the script. And the fact that you're allowing the empowerment of, you know, freedom of speech, which is why we are all here, really. We want to be able to be heard and to say something, you know, and cause some type of change. And, you know, as a young female Latina, I can definitely say that I understand you 100%. It's taken years as well for me to actually accept the things that have happened to me, to actually be okay with going through that pain, to actually be able to speak about it. You never know who's going to listen. You never know who you're going to help. And when you're a victim of sexual assault and when you're a victim of such crime, it's important that, yeah, you go through the phases, but you also talk about it. So I definitely feel you on that end. It takes time because when you're younger, you don't understand it and you don't know how to change it into something positive. Like you just mentioned, you are turning it into something positive. You know, it's something negative, but you're just turning it around, and that's great, you know?
Yeah, my friends and my family tell me all the time, they ask, do you think that you do what you do because in some way, shape, or form, it's therapeutic to you to help other people? Because, you know, I felt so alone and isolated going through the abuse that I never really felt like I had somebody there. And so I've always wanted to, I've never walked away from a story where I don't have a closeness with the families, you know, that I interview or that I do stories on. They know that they're always allowed to call me, whether it's 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, because I sleep with my phone by my side, as every journalist does. So I've been asked that by my friends, like, do you think that you've turned, and this was even before I admitted that I was a victim. And I had to go back and think about it, right? Because everything's easier in hindsight 2020. And then I realized Yeah, maybe I did. There was this clear calling that I thought this is where God wanted to place me. If not, I would just have continued on and became a lawyer. But then I realized looking back that the way I approach people and stories and families is the same way that I would want my family approached if, God forbid, something bad happened within the family. And so I do take everyone's pain into consideration. As an empath, that can be a little bit difficult because, we tend to, we're like sponges. We tend to take other people's feelings in and then like we feel them too. So it can get to be too emotional at times, but I wouldn't have changed the course of my life. I mean, do I wish, that I hadn't been victimized? Of course. But at the same time, I feel that it lends itself to the type of compassion that I now give to other people.
Yes. And that's understood. And, you could definitely feel that you're passionate about that, about every family that you come in contact with. And that's very important, especially when you have families trusting you.
Mm-hmm.
It's very important. So I really appreciate that from you.
Thank you. That means so much.
So I have another question for you. How difficult has it been, a woman of color, to break into the journalism and into the media field?
And now that, we can kind of talk about it more openly than we've ever been able to talk about it, given what's been happening since the death of Ahmaud Arbery, George Floyd, Breonna Taylor. It was quite difficult. I started in a very large market. I started in Miami, which is kind of unheard of in our business. It was kind of this meteoric rise. And I got a lot of crap for it. People were like, she wasn't hired because she's good. She was only hired because she was pretty. I don't read blogs now, but back then it used to really get to me. I mean, I was being compared to a porn star. They were trying to say that I inject my lips. And, it was just this kind of degrading thing. In fact, when I started in the business, they asked me if I would be willing to change my name. They thought Nefertiti Jacquez was just too ethnic. And I just wasn't able to do it. And so when I actually started in the business, when I decided, to start in Miami, I will give credit to my boss then, Shannon High, who also had naturally curly hair. And she was like, I said, are you going to want me to straighten my hair like, every other reporter does? And she's like, no, it's Miami. We're curly. And this was right after I graduated Brown. So my hair was like down to my butt. It was, as you know, a lot of gel, a lot of mousse to keep it from throwing up in the middle of the Miami heat. And so there was a lot. There was a lot of attacks on me because people don't know this, but I've never taken a journalism course. I've never taken a communications course. I've never taken a writing course. So everything I learned about being a journalist, I learned out in the streets of Miami with the help of other, older reporters who became my mentors and now are my friends. And so it was very difficult because I was being judged for pretty much everything. For the makeup that I wore, because I didn't know how to do makeup because I never wore it before, to how my hair was styled, to my name. And so it's hard when you've been through so much in your past to then feel like you were bullied as a child and then being bullied as an adult when all I wanted to do was help people. Mm-hmm. And it really hurt back then because I'm like, I couldn't understand how come people couldn't understand that all I wanted to do was help families. Like everybody was so fixated on my name, my hair, and my looks. And I was like, how dare you compare me to a porn star when you have no idea what my life was before I decided to take this job. When you are victimized in that way, you feel such shame and guilt. And there's even a self-hatred that you have for yourself, right? Even though it started when I was 5, there's still this blame that you have that continues on. That's very numbing that I think happens, more frequently in Black and Latino families than people are willing to say because nobody wants to come out and say, hey, I was, sexually assaulted or raped. But it's interesting how people view your life versus what your life really was and is at the time.
Yeah, that's true. And, the fact that you're actually giving back to all of us after, you went through something that was impactful in your life, and, you use that fuel to actually do something great, and you're doing it. And that's appreciated. It's not easy. It's a journey. And, it takes a lot of trust between, family members, like clear family members, like your brother. I got two brothers, so I know. My mom's my best friend, so my mom knows everything. And even when I say, "No, I ain't gonna tell my mom," people say, "Don't tell your mom." I'm gonna tell my mama.
I'm the same way with my brother Irving. It's people almost think like they don't know what to think. Like usually when you have an older brother, he's very typical, very protective, wants to know who's in my life, why they're in my life. Is it because I'm on TV? Like no boyfriend has had it easy when it comes to my older brother Irving. Like I've always felt really bad for all of them. But it's really weird. I mean, talking about shout outs, he definitely gets the number one shout out because I think outside of being my brother, he was my protector, when we were being, abused. And we're not talking about just spankings, to the point where bones were broken and I was being knocked out, unconscious. There were times where Irving would jump in front of me to take the hits. And so I love him in a way that I can't really even explain in words, and he knows that. I make it very clear to him. And it's kind of interesting because as tough as he is about me and the people in my life, we have never had an argument my entire life.
That's wonderful.
Never.
And that's how it needs to be, because y'all understand each other. So why is there a need to argue? We're right here. Yeah. And, touching on that same topic, like even now when you're in the industry, it happens everywhere. Have you ever been like, have any advances been made to you? You're beautiful, and people don't understand that you've been through things. And like you said, someone mentioned you as referring to something else, which they have no idea what you've been through. Have there been instances?
Yeah, there's been definitely instances of, sexual harassment in the workplace. There has been instances where my looks have come up, even from females, in a newsroom. Issues with my hair, again, being too ethnic. I had a boss once text me because I had just gotten back from vacation, and I always have two stylists. And so my main stylist was sick. My second one was out of town. So I had to wear my hair naturally. And literally got a text from a female boss telling me that, she didn't like that look. It was too ethnic. So there's been harassment on a racial level, on a sexual level, toxic work environment. Because as I grew in the business and I grew into my purpose and understanding what my purpose was, I became very vocal about what I wasn't willing to accept. And when I became vocal, the harassment got bigger. It was like the idea that if a man speaks his voice, it's heard. If a Latina or a Black woman speaks their mind, they're emotional, they're too sensitive, they're angry. And I just wasn't about that life. Like it's taken me a long time to get here, but I'm finally in a space. And you can see that more now, even through my social media, where I'll say what I want. I'll say exactly how I feel. And I don't hide elements of myself, my life, my identity, how I identify, the fact that I'm God-fearing. So yeah, but no, I have endured that. And what I notice is the more I stuck up for myself, the worse the harassment got.
Because the society is not meant for us to speak up and say, hey, that's not appropriate. I feel uncomfortable. It's supposed to be, it's set this way, the good old boy club, and you're an object that we get to toy around and talk about and poke at, and you're supposed to sit there and be quiet. especially as a female. Now put, Hispanic and being Black and being, from one side of town, just a complete, crazy opportunity for them to just get angry. It's not set up for us to even give our opinion, and even nowadays. So the fact that you're actually standing up, that is an example for everybody else out there, a female that's out there in the brown and Black community. If there's something that you're not digging at your job, you got to speak up about it. And sometimes you have to get up and walk away from that job. There's always going to be a job out there for you.
Like, I didn't go into becoming a crime journalist or an investigator and covering such serious topics and chasing down bad guys, to then be just minimized to being a female and how I looked. Like, that wasn't going to happen.
Exactly. And that's a prime example as to what you should be doing, stand up for yourself. So thank you for that.
Mm-hmm. I think it's really important to, especially when you're Latino or Black, there's a weight that you carry. And I know that it's a weight that I carry, where I'm not just doing this for myself. I'm not just doing this for my parents, for my brother, for my family. I'm doing this for other Black and Latinos. There was a time once where when I started a job, there was a white journalist who at the end, it's usually you see the reporter at the top of the story, and then at the end, kind of like intro, body, conclusion to a written essay. And they came out in the end and they were like, yeah, police are looking for a Black suspect who's 6'2". And I was like, I was on the job for maybe a week and a half. And I walked into the boss's office and I said, we can't do that because that's half of the city.
Right.
Now, if you tell me that the suspect was, 6'2", Black, and had, a red birthmark near his eye and a tattoo, then I understand that. But not when we're just going to throw out these generalizations and pretend that that's okay.
And I agree, but again, we're breaking barriers, and COVID has actually changed a lot of the norm that we have had to live in. As you mentioned, there's a lot of reporters that are out there. You don't want that contact because you don't understand that you don't know, there's no look for COVID. So in order for our reporters to stay safe and keep everybody in the station safe, you're going to have to exclude yourself from certain things like doing your hair, getting your nails done, whatever. And, the fact that we see that more and more on TV are proper representation of us, of our community. Like you mentioned, it should have been like that for a minute now.
But yeah, I do agree with you. I think Blacks and Latinos, this is the time to unite. My mom is like as fair as you are. And so I've had...
That's a nice way to put it, Nefertiti. Thank you.
I mean, at the end of the day... colonizers are what they are. So... not going to go there, but and I also think when you talk about, empowerment and how Blacks and Latinos need to unite, I always go back to, because I talk about this a lot with Charlemagne, who's a close friend of mine, where it's like, your purpose in life is not just to serve yourself. Your purpose in life is to take your power and also help the people that come behind you. And
those next to you that have not found their power yet.
It's interesting. So when we talk about, making sure that we have a united front, it requires empowering each other, not just women, but everyone, empowering our children, like you said, and making sure that we're also doing our best to give back to our communities. And so I would hope that people would take this year, as bad as it has been, and really kind of internalize within themselves what they could do to heal. I think if people started focusing more on their healing and inviting people into their lives that deserve a seat in their arena, that there would be more good than harm. I think a lot of times Latinos and Blacks sometimes, because we were so taught to just be strong and not deal with our problems, it lessens our ability to really go as high as we need to really fulfill all of the aspects of all of the dreams we want. And I want every little boy and girl, who watches this, who's either Black or Latino, to feel that they have more than that they have everything at their access, but it starts with knowing who they are.
Mm-hmm. And that's how it needs to be, giving that opportunity, not just by word, but actually by action. With our actions, we can actually inspire others to be great. The way we were raised, the way we were put in certain situations as a youth, we were not, of course, we were loved in a sense, but I also come from a very physical, abusive family. I forgave my father. I love my father. He's the only father I have. Of course, I have a stepfather and I love him dearly, but it's not easy when you're going through these emotions as a young child, and you think that, well, my word doesn't count, or I can't do that. I'll get in trouble, or, for us successful entrepreneurs, young entrepreneurs, to show the children of this world, you could be whatever you want to be, regardless of where you come from, regardless of what your situation is in life. That is empowering. That is a motivation. That is inspirational to them. And, we must continue the great fight. We must continue to set these and be trailblazers, because that's exactly what you are, Nefertiti. You are a trailblazer.
Thank you. I mean, I don't know if I've ever thought of myself in that sense. I always think it's really sweet and humbling when people feel that. For me, all I've ever wanted to do was to make sure that one of my victims or the families of my victims never felt as alone as I did as a child.
You are a woman of many words. You are a Renaissance woman. Are there any specific pointers or bits of advice that you'd like to give our youth and our readers and our listeners?
That's a very good question and a very difficult question. Man, talk about putting me on the spot. Look, I think I'm always going to, and I talk about vulnerability a lot. I think that you have to accept yourself completely as you are in order to live a fulfilled life. Faking the front like you're happy when you're not allowing your body to feel its natural feelings, whether that's crying or, letting out steam, that's only going to hinder you. It's only going to lead you to a place of further unhappiness. Breaking generational curses. Don't wait for the next generation. You start it. Break the bonds, break the chains, anything that you feel have been holding you or your family back. Fix yourself, work on yourself, but also understand that it's a process. Like I said, you don't just wake up healed one day, it's this ever growing evolution to get to a place of happiness, but also accepting yourself for who you truly are. Especially for people of color, especially women and men. I would hope that when you look in the mirror that, man, I might cry.
Okay. We've just finished talking about this. It's okay.
I think that I would hope for people, especially people of color, that when they look in the mirror, that they're happy with what they see and who they are, not aesthetically, but with what's happening inside. And to not only show grace to themselves, but to other people, because it is very easy to look at somebody and judge them for their outward appearance or what you think they have, never knowing the life that they have led or lead now currently. And so between vulnerability, acceptance, loving thyself, and loving thy neighbor, I would say, we were put on this earth to love and to be loved. It does not take anything away from you or your success to empower another woman, to empower another man, to mentor a child, I think that there is room on the stage for everyone.
Definitely. Thank you for that. Are there any shout outs that you want to give out?
I want to shout you out.
Hey.
I definitely have to do a shout out to my brother Irving. I mean, we've talked about him a lot here, so he's not on social media, but I'm still going to send him a link. So I know I didn't expect this to be a cry session at any point, but whatever. Good trouble. Hashtag good trouble.
Okay. Well, thank you, Nefertiti. This, it was an honor. So thank you so much. And until then, sis.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Bye.
Make sure to follow Nefertiti on Facebook, Twitter, and on Instagram.